Hello everyone. There was a pioneering and radical exercise that was done a few months ago that I had the pleasure to coordinate. 100 nonprofits from across India pooled in their data to create a community driven benchmark of the salary scales that they give their employees and the benefits that they provide. And then they said, why don't we make some of this data available to the public so that other nonprofits can also take use of what we have created? And so there is a public version of the report that has been launched, and the link to that is available in the description below. What we will do in this video that accompanies the report is to look at the structure of the overall report, talk about some of the highlights of the data, share some guidance around how to read and how not to read the report, and finally, share a thought for what some of this data means for the sector. Let's dive in. The report broadly has 5 sections. First, the context and overview. Second, the core report, which has 3 parts in it. And finally, the closing thoughts. In the context and overview, there is a background to the report and the process by which it was created. There is a section explaining what Rahi Impact is about. And there is an important section which gives guidelines to the reader around how to look at this report and how not to look at it. Now, we will get into some parts of it in this video, but do check that out, especially if you are reading such reports for the first time. Getting into the core of the report, there are 3 parts. An overview of the participants by different cuts, like by sector, by the age of the organization, and by geography of operations. Coming into the second part of the main report, which is the compensation benchmarks. In the public version, there are a set of important cuts given by budget size, ranging from, let's say, 5 to 50 lakh budget size organizations to 50 to 200 crore size organizations, giving benchmarks of the salary for different roles across the leadership, the program teams, and the support teams or the organization teams. And finally, coming to the benefits benchmark, there are broadly 5 categories of benefits that the organizations were asked about, and their responses have been recorded in the report. Additionally, one of the important things that a lot of organizations looked forward to was getting an idea of the increments that were being planned for the year 23-24 in different organizations, which has been included under the section of performance bonuses. And finally, in the closing thoughts, there is a pay-as-you-wish option for the report. There are acknowledgements to the many people who have leaned in and supported for the outreach to the 100 organizations and for pure moral support for such a new initiative. And at the end, there are links to other useful resources, including other Rahi initiatives, as well as other compensation and talent benchmarking reports that have been done by different organizations. The overview of participant section is useful to help you understand if this report is relevant and contextual for your organization and for your situation. You will find a non-exhaustive list of the participants who have given their data for this report. You will find cuts by sector and by organization type. And broadly, if I look at it, the organizations that have participated have 0 to 125 employees, and they are less than 25 years old. They come from different parts of the country. In terms of sectoral focus, there is some bias towards having more organizations working in education, and that's just a result of this way the networks worked as we were doing the outreach for this report. Now, coming to the compensation benchmarks, there are 3 main types of graphs that have been there. I wanted to call out the details just so it's easier for you to read the report. The first is the table. Second are some bar graphs, and third are certain line graphs that are there. If you look at the table has on the rows, it has the minimum, maximum, and average salaries that are provided. And on the columns, you have the different roles which are there. The first two columns for the leadership, the next few columns for the program teams, and final 5, 6 columns for the support or the organization teams, which includes monitoring and evaluation, fundraising, HR, and finance. In the bar graphs, there are two different types of views provided. In the first view, we have the different budget sizes of organization in the x-axis, and each bar represents a different role in the organization, color coded as you can see on the legend on the top right. In the flipped view, you will find that you have the different roles in the x-axis, and the different bars actually represent the salary, the average salary provided for that role in different organization sizes. Now, this might sound a little confusing, but if you take a look deeply at the page, it'll start to make sense. And the final type of graph that is there is in the deep dives. This goes a little deeper because averages often don't tell the full story. So there are a set of different graphs which talk not just about the average, but put the table into graphical view by giving a view of the minimum, maximum, and the average for the different roles. And on the x-axis, as before, you have the different budget sizes of organizations from 5 to 50 lakh at the left end to 50 to 200 crore at the right end. The data points that will matter to you would look different depending on what organization budget size you are interested in and is relevant for your context. However, I would strongly encourage you to not anchor on a single data point. Remember that the definition of these roles have been approximate and have been understood by organizations potentially a little differently. So the larger archetype of manager you could look at together, the larger archetype of associate you could look at together, and so on. Coming to the benefits benchmarks, organizations were asked about what are the different types of benefits you provide given by these categories. And reading all the information that came in, here's the big story that comes out. First, in terms of leaves, there are the standard sick leave, casual leave, privilege leave, etc. that are there, and the additional leaves like maternity leave, paternity leave, bereavement leave that organizations generally provide. Different organizations provide different cuts and different types and different numbers, all of which could not be captured in this benchmarking. And additional to that, different organizations have called out some special types of leaves that they provide. While these are not common, they have been collated here for inspiration and for you to think whether it would apply in your context. Some of these include menstrual leaves, study leaves, birthday leaves, and so on. Second, if you look at the PF, ESI, gratuity, in a sense, organizations provide them to the best way possible. Third, looking at the wellness benefits that are provided. Organizations take different approaches to this. All of them in general provide health insurance, but beyond that, organizations call out having mental health support for their employees, call out keeping a little budget for wellness activities, or giving it as a benefit to their employees so that they can go out and do the sort of wellness activities that make sense for them. One thing that is interesting for a lot of organizations to look at, especially in March 2024, is what is the increment percentage that is provided by different organizations. In summary, people look at it differently and there are different ranges provided. On average, the single number it comes to is somewhere between 7 to 12%. 10% is the most common number that is there. At the same time, it's important to recognize that this also is a range. Many organizations give details around the fact that they have a tiered structure of increments that is provided, let's say, from 5 to 15%, with the average performer getting the 10%. And a lot depends on your organization's context around how you look at this. Now, before you go off and read the report in your own time, in your own way, there are a few important things for you to keep in mind. First, remember that this report is indicative and not authoritative. While a lot of care has been taken in making sure that this information is correct and the report is as robust as it could be, it is important to keep in mind that this was a self-reported survey and there will be differences in understanding the questions across organizations, which will lead to some room for error that you have to keep in mind. Please take this report as indicative and nothing in this report as gospel truth. Second, please use the data and information in this report for the benefit of those who are working in the development sector and not to anyone's detriment. A lot of wonderful organizations have taken a risk and put their information out there to create this benchmark. And so I would love for all of us to collectively respect that confidence that they have imposed in us and ensure that we use this in positive and constructive ways. Third, remember that every organization's context and journey is unique. While the information in this report may be useful, please do not let anything in this worry you unnecessarily, because even with among the participants of this report, you will find significant variation if you only look close enough. And finally, if you are someone who is working in a nonprofit or someone who is interested in working in nonprofits, I would love for you to make sure that you use this information to engage with the organizational leadership constructively and positively. It's incredibly hard to run an organization, to build a nonprofit that is supporting its employees and its beneficiaries meaningfully. And it would be fantastic if the approach that you take with this information is one that enables them further and supports them in a positive way. And one final thought before we close the video. If we look at the trends in the compensation, as you find the budget size increasing, you find that there is an increase in the salary levels of the leadership team, which is absolutely understandable given the effort and drive required to build and grow an organization, and therefore the need to retain and attract talent in the leadership teams. But unfortunately, when we look at the salary levels across the other roles, somehow they seem to broadly be stagnant. And something that comes up as a question is, will we be able to attract and retain talent in the development sector if there is no increase in salary for the roles beyond the leadership team? There are a lot of dynamics and complexity that is associated with this question. There are funding related questions. There are questions around, should there be more salaries fundamentally for those who are trying to do good in the world versus those who are trying to make things easier for consumers, and so on. I would love to keep this conversation alive and would love to get your thoughts on this in the comments below. And if videos like this are useful and interesting to you, please do consider subscribing so that you get notified and we can grow this channel. And beyond all that, I hope that the information in the report, which again is available in the link in the description, I hope the information in that is useful for you. And I hope you can use it to support your employees and your beneficiaries in the best way possible. Thank you.